Hey friends, Lindsay Norman here. I really look forward to talking about this multiplication strategy today, which is all about training to a standard. Now, if you've been around me at all, you know how much my brain loves multiplication strategies over addition strategies. I find if you are building a network marketing business, in general, we want to be multiplying our growth, right? Not just adding. So my goal is always to make sure I'm assessing my organization and saying, where do I have multiplication strategies in place so that I help my leaders multiply their business? Essentially, that's really what we want to be doing. We want to grow strong, and we always want to be able to multiply or duplicate what we are doing, right? So training to a standard is one of those things. And so let's first, before we kind of talk about that, let's look at three aspects of the business that it doesn't matter which company you are a part of. There's going to be three aspects to your network marketing business. You are going to want to be recruiting or prospecting. I know people don't like that word, but essentially you're looking for people who would excel at growing a business alongside of you or in the same company as you. And you're looking for people who you can pour into and invest in to help them meet their goals and desires for themselves personally or their family. So that's going to be prospecting. Recruiting, prospecting, it's really the same thing at the end of the day. So you want to have your first big area of your business is recruiting. Second is once you've recruited somebody, onboarding them, right, is so key. And then, of course, helping them maintain or grow the business over time. Those are the three aspects of the business. We want everybody who comes onto our team to be able to recruit, onboard, and help others grow their business. So you might wonder, well, how do you do that? And I think if you don't have a lot of experience, or maybe you've been spinning your wheels, there is sometimes a balance between empowering people and saying, hey, you can figure it out. You're super competent and you're creative, go. And saying, you know what, we actually have some tools to help you start with to grow in your confidence and grow in your knowledge so that you don't have to start from the beginning. So I am a very empowering leader. I actually love my leaders to bring forth their strengths and creativity. And I'm like, run with it. Run with things the way works best for you. But what has made all the difference in the world is having a standard for training on those three key areas and having a few really important tools so that when new people come into the door, they don't have to be an expert before they are recruiting, onboarding, and helping others grow a business. So what do I mean by that? So you want to have an onboarding standard. Let's actually talk about recruiting standard. So recruiting first. So Eric Worre is one of my favorite people to follow. He wrote GoPro, and one of the things that he wrote about in GoPro was about how important it is for your team to have a recruiting tool. What is that tool? It's basically a tool that whether they've been in the business for 1 day or 10 years, they can use that tool and not feel like they personally need to be an expert in the business model and comp plan or how the business gets run. They can essentially share that tool with somebody who is more of an expert so that they can start the recruiting process as they're growing in their confidence and knowledge of their own business within that company. So making sure you have a recruiting tool that anybody on your team uses is going to be important and pivotal to multiplication growth on your team. That could be a video, that could be a training, a website, whatever that is. But what's beautiful about having that tool is now everybody on your team can use it. When we use our tool, we have a video that's super helpful. It explains our compensation plan. It explains what our team provides for people when they join our specific team. The beautiful thing about that now is anytime we're doing team meetings and we're talking about recruiting, we say, who's using this tool? Here is the tool. This is the standard that we're using all the time, which means everybody is recruiting with the same tool. And that actually makes accountability and training and team meetings and everything really easy because you're all using that same tool. So consistency is super key there. Now, when it comes to onboarding, you also want to have a standard training to onboarding. And I have actually seen this over the years in my experience of direct sales. When you leave it up to everybody on your team to onboard in all their different kinds of ways, you're going to get a whole modge podge of mixed, like you're going to be like, my team's not really growing. And you'll have one group of people over here who are like, well, this is what we're doing. And we're seeing some success, I think. And then you got this team over here was like, well, this is what we're doing. But we don't really know if it's right. And what have you created? confusion. And the confused mind says what? It says no. The clear mind, this is really important. Standards create clarity. Clarity creates confidence. And a clear mind says, yes, I can do this. So you want a clear mind. That's what a standard does. When you create a standard for onboarding on your team, it helps everybody know the standard and say, okay, yes, I know what to do. It also allows your new people, again, to not have to be an expert. You do not have to leave it up to them to know tools and best practices and all of resources that they might not know. If we left that up to them to decide or to figure out, your recruiting on your team is literally going to slow way down, right? So we're looking at a multiplication strategy here. So create a standard for onboarding. Maybe that's an onboarding training. And now your whole team uses your onboarding training. Okay. So make sure that you have that standard. And then, of course, you want a standard for maintaining and growing a business. So that might be, what does our week to week look like on our team? What pillars do we have in place to make sure that people are engaging in the business, collaborating together, and moving forward, having some very specific action items to move forward. So now, does that mean you never veer away from your standard? No, it doesn't. There might be times where you've built up leaders, like I've got leaders who are excelling greatly. They can actually now create their own standards for their team. But how did they get trained up? They all got trained up in the same standard so that it created clarity and confidence. And actually they promoted very, very quickly. Why? Because they did not need to be experts in recruiting and onboarding and helping people grow a business. The standard was already there. Then as they grew in confidence, as their team started multiplying and growing, now they're like, okay, now for our team's culture and DNA, we're going to create these standards for recruiting and onboarding and maintaining and growing a business. So at the end of the day, it's really important that you have some kind of standards on your team to train to. That is going to lead to multiplication growth. And if I can just also add here, when you have standards for training on your team, and when you have a couple of really important tools for recruiting and for onboarding and for maintaining the business, what that does is it actually frees up your team members' time so that they do not need to figure out or create new tools, especially at the beginning when all you want them to be able to do is focus on income producing activities. So income producing activities are not going to be, how do I create, all the time that they spend thinking about, how do I create onboarding? What should I be saying in a recruiting conversation? What if I don't know my compensation plan? I don't really know if this is going to be successful because I haven't really experienced success. And there's so much that is happening with a new person in their brain that if you can actually alleviate their need to think through all of that stuff, they can actually just focus on the income producing activities instead of a lot of busy work and a lot of things that could create stress and really holds them back in seeing some immediate success, which again leads to multiplication growth. So at the end of the day, as network marketers, we want to be wise with our time and our investment into our leaders and our team. Creating standards that we train to is going to help do that. Now, if you have multiple leaders on your team, what I would actually recommend is that you pull those leaders in. The whole is greater than the sum of its individual parts. I'm going to do other trainings in the future on using talents on your team. I know that I have one set of skills, right? I have my talent pool is like this big. But if I bring my leaders who are engaged in the business just as much as I am around with me, our talent and our skill set expands huge. So now when we're looking at what kind of standard do we want to create for recruiting, what kind of standard do we want to create for onboarding and maintaining a business, now I get insight and expertise and talent from more people than just me. So we're creating a tool that really is going to be quite effective. So you might be in a situation where you need to do some of those things yourself because you don't have a lot of leaders yet. But if you have leaders, I highly recommend collaborating with them to create those tools and those standards for training. Okay, as we finish up here, I want to finish by repeating one last thing. I think this is so important. A chaotic brain says no. Chaos says no in the brain. Standards create clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence leads to momentum, and momentum leads to multiplication. And at the end of the day, think about and imagine what it looks like for your team, each of your individual team members, to go through that process of clarity and confidence and momentum and multiplication. That ultimately is your goal. So think about how you can train to a standard and create just a couple really key tools for multiplication growth on your team. Have a great day.